Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, David Aragona, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Friday, September the 22nd. It's race number 8 at the Belmont at the Big A meeting, the John Hettinger Stakes, mile and an eighth on the turf. Let's take a look at this field of solid New York bred fillies and mares. Numbers 8 through 10 on the main track only list. David, deserving favorite, the number 2, New Ginia. She's won 3 of her last 4 turf starts. That was a rather eye-catching move to win the Yaddo last time out, but was last time the time at 8-1.
Yeah, she was an impressive winner last time at a nice price, and this race sets up an interesting exercise for trip handicappers because the top 4 choices on the morning line are all coming out of that same race, the Yaddo.
And the number 1, What Love Looks Like, was the beaten favorite in the Yaddo. I thought maybe she was a little overbet coming into that race off 3 consecutive victories, but she was up close to the pace that day. The Yaddo was kind of dominated by horses coming from off of it. And as we take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, there's a chance that What Love Looks Like at least gets up close to the pace in a situation that'll be fair for her. Spongy, the number 5, I know is tactical, but I have a feeling What Love Looks Like is going to take advantage of this inside draw and go.
Yeah, nobody in this race is really a confirmed front runner, but drawing the rail, you would have to imagine that What Love looks like is going to go to the lead under Flavien Prat. She's done some of her best running when she's forwardly placed in a stalking position, so you'd imagine they try to secure that inside spot and lead this field the entire way. But there's not likely to be as much pace on as there was last time when New Ginia made that big late run.
What Love Looks Like does draw the inside post. She was hung way out in the Yaddo, and she broke running that day. She just kind of hung out wide going into the first turn. She settled into a position just off of the early leader. What did you think of the finish? She kind of just was a bit flat, in my opinion, late. I really liked the things she had done earlier in the summer, in the spring and into the summer.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. 6-5 seemed like a really short price on her against that field. And she ran okay. The race did kind of just fall apart overall at the end. So she was sort of with the flow of the race, just kind of going in the wrong direction at the end. I mean, she hung on for 4th that day. Her prior form was okay. That mile and 3/8 victory, I thought it came against suspect competition. And prior to that, she might have just handled that turf course that she was presented with when she got the yielding ground in the Port Washington. So I'm not really sure where she stands from an overall quality standpoint, but she's likely to get the right kind of trip in here.
Let's watch New Ginia take the measure of What Love Looks Like and 2 other of these horses in the Yaddo, and she makes this big, wide, sweeping move on the turn. She's going to take command. She's going to be on her way, but keep an eye on Spongy in the green. She sort of had to dive down on the inside. She was in tight on the first turn and was shuffled back. And all things considered, off of a lengthy layoff, I thought she ran well, but let's take nothing away from New Ginia. She fired her best shot here.
Yeah, something that I noticed watching a lot of these turf races, and there were a limited number of turf races, but watching them the past, I would say 2 to 3 weeks at Saratoga, is on the Mellon course, horses making these big wide runs seem to have more success than they typically do. Even when the rails came down, typically you see the inside right close to the hedge being the place to be. And it seemed like it was the opposite situation at Saratoga towards the end of the meet. And I thought New Ginia got a good trip in terms of the flow of the race and just kind of being with that track profile. I kind of want to see her do it again at what's likely to be a much shorter price in this race.
Number 3 is Runaway Rumor, and she has a good amount of back class. She'll be making her first start for trainer Linda Rice. Now, she finished up 3rd in the Yaddo. She was sort of on the outside flow that day, although a little bit closer to the pace than the horses that ran 1-2. Your thoughts on that performance? At this point, I think she's become a bit of an in and outer, but she does have several back races, obviously.
Yeah, I was sort of disappointed by that last race. She got a decent trip, all things considered. It just didn't really finish it off. I can make some minor excuses for her 2 races prior to that. There was no pace in the De La Rose. And then before that, she just kind of got this outside free running trip without cover in the Port Washington when she lost to What Love Looks Like at a short price. So she's had minor excuses, but the excuses are piling up at this point and she's not delivering.
Saratoga Chrome's a deserving long shot. She's eligible for a non-winners of 2 life event. She doesn't have much early speed, and she failed to threaten after not getting away from the gate very well in her most recent start. She's going to need a lot of things to happen for her to take a step forward and some of these others perhaps to take a step back.
Yeah, she's a big price in this race, so I don't want to be too hard on her. But even when she was at her best, she'd be a bit of a stretch in this field, and just seems like she's not in her best form right now.
Spongy won second off of a long layoff last year during the Belmont at the Big A meeting, and she's going to try to pull that trick again after the race we saw on the Yado. And again, she was down on the inside in the first turn, kind of got steadied and shuffled back a little bit. We saw her have to angle down inside again. She was running on at the end of that race, and if you think she needed it slightly in her first off the bench, she should be much sharper for this.
Yeah, just thought it was the wrong trip last time. Like you said, they tried to go forward with her at the beginning of the race and just couldn't secure that inside position, got steadied back, wound up further back than I think they really wanted to be that day. And she was just on the inside most of the way in a race where all of the serious running was done out in the center of the race course. She finished up decently for second, and she's a horse who has needed a race off the layoff in the past. So if you project her taking a step forward in this spot, she's a major player.
The 6 is out of sight, and she's cutting back slightly in distance while returning to the turf. I thought she ran okay 3 starts back against open first-level allowance competition over yielding going at Belmont. That being said, if she runs that race and even takes a slight step forward, it may not be enough.
Yeah, she does have some tactical speed, which could be an asset in this race. I could see her getting a little aggressive under Irad Ortiz, but she's just a horse who hasn't really gone on since winning some of those softer races against New York bred allowance conditions early in her career, and she would really need to improve on her recent form.
The final horse in the body of the race is the number 7, Sweetie, and she's a very lightly raced mare who's coming into this race seeking her 3rd consecutive victory. She looked pretty good in her turf debut, considering that there really wasn't a ton of pace in this race. It was also a short field, and the trip kind of worked out for her. She was inside. She's going to be able to bull her way through, and she'll get it done. I'm willing to give her maybe an extra little point or two because there wasn't a ton of pace, but it just doesn't appear that there's really any much running going on behind her.
Yeah, this was a weird race. The horse that was projected to be the speed got left in the starting gate and I think was declared a non-starter in this spot. So it seemed like the lead was there for the taking and nobody really wanted it. And Sweetie just saved ground in behind the leaders and was able to get that perfect inside-out trip at the top of the stretch. Kind of interesting that she took to the turf because there's really no turf pedigree to speak of with this horse, but she obviously liked it. This is a much tougher field, though.
8 through 10 entered main track only. So before we get to our top selection, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for our Friday race of the day, the John Hettinger. We're both going to go with Spongy to perhaps turn the tables on the favorite in here. Again, trip didn't exactly pan out for her last time out, and she has one under her girth for her 2nd start back.
Yeah, she's a horse who's shown plenty of quality in the past, has had some stops and starts in her career, and it just felt like last time would be the right kind of race to set her up for a better effort here.
One might have a nice pace advantage breaking from the inside. You've got her 2nd. 5, 1, 2, 3 for David. 5, 2, 3, 7 for me. And the John Hettinger. It's the DRF race of the day for Friday. Good luck.